Greetings. I am the shadow of Pete Olson's head, here today to talk with you about a couple more prints in my collection at home. I'm a big fan of birds and nature and natural history prints, and as such, I have two images that are very different from each other that are both by the same artist, a Frenchman named Eduoard Travies.
Many artists with a proclivity for scientific accuracy found steady work illustrating natural history texts, which increased in popularity throughout the 1800s. Many publishers scrambled to issue new editions of pre-existing texts, and Travies was hired to illustrate compendiums by Georges-Louis Leclerc Comte de Buffon and Charles de Orbigny.
I am particularly smitten by this technique of leaving the background black and white while colors are applied only to the birds themselves. This mirrors a way of seeing in which the attention is so focused on something small like a little bird that the rest of the world begins to fade slightly.
A secret technique used by some artists to accentuate the depth of colors and shadows was to selectively paint a varnish-like substance called gum arabic over the shadows. Looking at this print in raking light reveals the presence of this substance. I like simple, neutral frames. Putting two of these prints side by side allows for not only a richer viewing experience, but mimics the pages of an open book. One question I faced was, how far apart should they be placed? Well, my choice was sort of made for me by the size of the paper on which they were printed. I put them as close together as possible and held them in place with archival photo corners and mounting strips. With this method, no adhesive actually touches the prints, as it would if I had used tape. A feature of most natural history prints, because they began their lives as book illustrations, is a host of credits on the outskirts of the image. Most important is a title identifying the species in the picture, but also included are the names of the artists and publishers. In the lower center, the brothers Garnier are listed as editors. They started a business that sold and republished books, which still exists to this day. On the left is Eduard Travies' name, followed by DEL, which is the root of the word delineate. This signifies the person who made the drawing or painting, in this case a watercolor, on which the print is based. In the center is the name of the print shop where they were printed and colored, where impressions were made, hence IMP. Finally, we see the name Pardinel followed by SC. He is the specific person in the print shop who copied and etched or engraved the image into a metal plate, like a sculpture, SC, allowing it to be printed dozens, even hundreds of times.
I can't help but notice the nest resembles the shape of a human heart. This reminds me of a fun fact. The average heart rate of a hummingbird in flight is over 1,200 beats per minute, but their heart rate slows to around 250 at rest and below 100 when sleeping in a state of torpor. I mentioned the heart as a segue to an image where hearts are no longer beating. This is one of a series called Souvenirs de chasse, Memories of the Hunt. Lifeless game birds and a few songbirds hanging in a trompe-l'oeil still life. Why would the same artist who depicts birds as lively gems also produce pictures such as these? This is a complex image to look at with 21st century eyes. In the 150 years or more since this print was made, we have witnessed massive degradation of the natural world, and I can't help but reading this image as a symbol of that. But this lithograph was made at another time and place. Our understanding of it is not complete without considering its historical context, where, for example,
Hunting was much more a part of everyone's daily lives, and the bounty of the natural world seemed limitless. Another way to look at it is to set the layers of interpretation aside and admire the virtuoso talent of the artist to accurately render the colors and textures, the inherent timeless beauty of these birds, which have ironically achieved immortality through their depiction in art. This is a lithograph drawn on a slab of limestone, printed in black ink on paper, and then hand-colored with watercolors. Travies drew this image himself directly on the stone. Therefore, the subtle finesse of his hand is more evident. By comparison, the lines in the hummingbird etchings seem a bit cold and mechanical. In this detail, the deep shadows seem to make the birds' bodies pop forward from the background. Travies once again employs the gum arabic technique to achieve this. Travies was so skilled at creating the illusion of three-dimensional volume that this wing appears to lift away from the background, even though it is all drawn on a flat, two-dimensional surface. Another layer of irony that a lifeless image of lifeless birds still contains within it an energy, dare I call it a life force. Thank you for listening.